Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Now Christmas is over, but it's still sort of winter time, so ideal for nice spicy cakes. So for that reason I'm going to make a rich dark gingerbread loaf cake. So this is going to be made in a 2-pound loaf tin, and for that I'm using a liner that you can buy that fits into the tin. You could line the tin with parchment paper, maybe with a double layer of parchment paper I would suggest, but that will work fine. And the recipe is very simple to do. It just takes a little bit of time because it has to bake for 75 to 90 minutes. But basically the ingredients are 175 grams of plain flour, that's 1 cup plus 6 tablespoons, or 1 cup, a quarter of a cup and an eighth of a cup. Then I have 75 grams of butter, unsalted butter, which is 5 tablespoons plus a teaspoon. I have 75 grams of dark brown caster sugar, which is 6 tablespoons, or a quarter of a cup and an eighth of a cup. In this bowl I have two things: 75 grams, a quarter of a cup, of black treacle, you could use molasses, and 75 grams, a quarter of a cup, of golden syrup, you could use corn syrup. Then I have 1 large egg, which will be extra large in the USA, and I'm going to beat that a little bit before I use it. I have 2 tablespoons, 30 millilitres of milk, half a teaspoon of baking soda, a quarter of a teaspoon of ground nutmeg. Now I actually grated this nutmeg myself, but you could use ground nutmeg, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and a tablespoon, 3 teaspoons of ground ginger. And so and I also have 75 millilitres, a quarter of a cup plus a tablespoon of water. Now the first thing I'm going to do is to put the spices into the flour, and then I'm just going to mix those together like that. Now my oven is preheating at the moment to 170 Celsius, that's 150 Celsius with a fan, 340 Fahrenheit, and I have an oven rack placed so that it's in the lower part of the oven, and when this tin goes in, it will the top of the tin will be just about level with the middle of the oven. So the next thing to do is to put the water, the butter, the sugar, and the treacle, the black treacle and the golden syrup into a saucepan, and put that on a very gentle heat, and just heat it until everything is dissolved. You don't want to get anywhere near boiling, just heat it till things dissolve. Now just before I do that, I'm going to put the baking soda into the milk and give that a mix round to dissolve it. So we'll just melt the butter and the other ingredients in the saucepan. So that has all melted and it's ready to go on to the next stage. And the next stage is to put the dry mixture and that wet mixture into a bowl. And then we're going to mix it until it all comes together. A wooden spoon would be good, but I'm going to use this dough whisk. And that's almost there. I'm just going to scrape the side. To get all the flour incorporated. And then I'm going to add in the beaten egg and mix that in. And then the milk with the baking powder. And that's all there is to do. So that's ready to go into our cake tin. So again, I'm just going to scrape the side and I'm going to pour that into the loaf tin. Like that, and that's ready to go into the oven to bake for 1.25 hours to 1.5 hours until it's risen and it feels firm to the touch. It's quite likely that it will split along the centre, but that's normal, so that will be okay. But once it's firm to the touch after 1.25 hours to 1.5 hours, I'll take it out of the oven and allow it to cool for 5 minutes before I take it out of the tin, but still leave it in the paper and allow it to cool completely. Then I'll come back and show you the result. Our rich dark ginger cake baked, and I baked mine for 1 hour and 15 minutes and then tested it, and it felt quite firm on top and it had risen. So that was ready. I took it out and let it cool down for 5 minutes, and then I took it out of the tin but left it with the paper and let it cool, so it's now almost completely cool. And I've cut a slice, I've cut the end off basically. So this is what it looks like. I know that it's lovely and moist inside. Now, as I have a taste, I should say that it's recommended, and I got this recipe basically from Delia Smith's Delia online website. It's recommended that you don't eat this, but you store it in an airtight container for at least 24 hours to allow it to develop the flavour more, and it will actually become more sticky as well if you do that. But I'll taste this anyway. You can taste the ginger and the molasses. It's it's very tasty. And it's the sort of thing that you can use for a number of purposes. I think Delia Smith recommends that you slice it thickly and slather it in butter and eat it. But I think you could actually just as easily serve this as a dessert with some custard or some ginger sauce or chocolate sauce or caramel sauce or whatever. It's very easy to make, almost impossible to go wrong. So I hope you'll give this a try, and if you've liked this video, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, which will take you to the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.